Welcome to Unhacked. I'm Robert Lubin, the director of the Security Operations Center at Abacode Cybersecurity and Compliance. Join us here Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern to take you through a cyber topic of the week. We'll cover all the ins and outs, the who, what, when, where, why, how of a breach, and hopefully provide you with some key takeaways and some lessons learned, and how you can apply those lessons learned to your own security and compliance framework. All right, so our topic today is going to be the recent Twitter hack, in which several high-profile accounts were taken over and used in a cryptocurrency scam. So I'm sure most of you have heard about the breach. It's been in the news the last few weeks when the Twitter accounts of some pretty famous folks were taken over. Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Kim Kardashian, were taken over, and essentially they were used to send out a Bitcoin scam. Essentially the Twitter message read something along the lines of, hey, I'm ready to give back to the community. All Bitcoin sent to my address below for the next 30 minutes. I will send back to you doubled. So not so believable in my eyes, but some folks actually fell for it and sent a significant amount of cryptocurrency. It was valued more than 100,000 Bitcoin. Which a little more than $100,000. But really, it pales in comparison to the hit to the reputation that Twitter took. Okay, don't anybody worry too much about Twitter. I think they're going to be okay. But how did it happen? All right, so Twitter has acknowledged that the initial footprint that was gained by the hackers was via a phone-based spear phishing attack, or you may call it vishing or voice phishing. So it looks like they were able to get the credentials for a handful of actual regular users, not admin users, just standard users, which, initially granting them access to Twitter's internal network. Okay, but from there, they were able to then pivot from those regular user accounts and essentially target users that actually had the accesses that they were looking for, the permissions and accesses to the account management tools, right? Thus giving the hackers access to those high-profile accounts, okay? The hackers would have done some pretty extensive reconnaissance and research prior to these vishing attempts. Essentially just, scouring employees' LinkedIn profiles, their social media accounts, just doing tons of different Google searches, and really just acquiring as many tidbits of information as possible. Essentially trying to make these vishing attempts as believable as possible. Okay. Now, after successfully getting access to the internal network, there would have been another phase of reconnaissance and information gathering, right? Which would have then enabled them to pivot and compromise an account of somebody that actually did have access and permissions in those account management tools. Okay. So really, this highlights how every member of an organization can and will be targeted, regardless of what their permissions are or their accesses. Okay, you don't have to be somebody with with domain admin privileges, or somebody in like the financial department or an IT department, or even be a high level executive. Right, you're going to get targeted. Any access to the internal network can be very fruitful to an attacker, right? And leveraged in the progression of the attack, right? So the attack doesn't go directly from A to B. There's several steps along the way, right? members of, another thing you need to consider is that members of your organization, they really need to be cognizant of the information, their own information that they're posting to the internet, right? This stuff can be utilized in social engineering attacks against them or even other members of their team, right? If John and Jane are posting pictures from the potato sack race at the company picnic to their social media account, that could be used to target maybe who do I say, John and Jane, but somebody else in the company, right? It's just all that information that's posted out there on social media. It could be very useful in tailoring a very believable social engineering attack. All right, and also you don't have to be a Goliath in industry to be the focus of an attack either, right? Small, medium-sized businesses and enterprises, they're targeted as well, right? It doesn't matter whether you're Twitter or Vandalay Industries, you are definitely going to be targeted at some point. Okay, so some recommendations. All users, right, regardless of what your position is in a company or what kind of accesses you have, should be trained in cybersecurity awareness, right? If you have an account in your corporate environment, then you should be trained regardless of what your function is or your accesses. Okay. Something else that you want to consider implementing is two-factor or multi-factor authentication, and it really should be enabled for all users, right? And I know that's a big pain point for a lot of people. It's so inconvenient, but it really is simple. Once it's implemented, it is so simple, right? A user, it's my username, password. Yep, that's me logging in. You just hit the little push notification on the phone, and you're good to go, right? If possible, I would recommend avoiding the SMS or text-based MFA codes. Reason being, they could be vulnerable to something called SIM swapping, or even there's vulnerabilities in something called the Signaling System 7, SS7, that could allow for actual intercept of those text messages. So certainly, your smartphone-based authenticator apps, it's more secure and convenient. So probably the better way to go. Okay. Something else, you certainly want to practice the principle of least privilege, right? Users should only be given access to the minimal privileges required to do their job. If they don't absolutely need a certain privilege to do the functions of their job, they shouldn't have it. Okay. And one more thing, the last thing that I'd leave you with is be vigilant, right? Any organization or user within that organization can and will be targeted. Just expect it. It's gonna happen. So be vigilant, be trained, and be ready to go. And really just add as many layers as you can and make it as difficult as possible. Don't be that low-hanging fruit for the hackers. Okay, make that their job hard. All right. So in closing, again, thank you for joining me. Please join me on Thursdays, 4 o'clock Eastern, when we'll walk through another cyber topic of the week. If you happen to miss one, check out, it'll be posted to our site at abacode.com. Come check us out. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date on the latest cybersecurity breaches. I'm Robert Lubin. Thank you for joining us for Unhacked. Hope to see you next week.